I head out today because this Friday night and next Friday night I'm gonna have busy days where I'm going on what they call speed dates or just randomly going to meet women because like with guys being single they're trying to look for like a girlfriend to go out with and hang out with. So that's what I'm doing tonight and next Friday. So yeah, I'm trying to get like a lot of stuff done, and then also before I start the video, actor James Vanderbeek has died. Guy was only 40 years old, and and I didn't even know he had cancer. That's the same thing that happened when Chadwick Boseman died. Didn't know he had cancer until after he died. Um, so, and I loved James Vanderbeek as an actor. It's sad that he's gone so young at 48. Chadwick Boseman, when he died in 2020, he was only 43, 44, also very young. So today we're gonna talk. Today we're gonna talk about Vatican City. Yeah, it'll be good tonight. So at 6 o'clock I'm leaving for a speed dating event. Where you get to go to the bars and you get to socially act with women who are looking for dates. So that's what I'm doing today and next week. So I'm trying to get all my stuff done before we head out there. So today we're going to talk about Vatican City, which is where the Pope resides. So Vatican City, which is officially known as the Vatican City State, or just often shortened as the Vatican, is a landlocked sovereign city-state ruled by the Pope, and it is an enclave with the city of Rome, Italy, and serves as the administrative center of the Catholic Church. Vatican City is governed by the See of Rome, commonly known as the Holy City or Holy See itself. Itself is a sovereign entity under international law, which maintains its temporal power, governance, diplomacy, and spiritual independence. Vatican City is also used as a metonym for the Holy See, which is the central governing body of the Catholic Church, and Vatican City comprising the Pope and the Roman Curia. Now, the independent state of Vatican City came into existence in 1929 via the Lateran Treaty between the Holy See and the Kingdom of Italy, which spoke of it as a creation, not as a vestige of the much larger papal states, which operated between 756 and 1870, which had previously encompassed much of Central Italy itself. Now, here you'll see this. On the left is the flag of Italy, and then you got the coat of arms, like the flag of the Vatican City in Italy, and then you got the coat of arms, and then down here is the national seal of the Vatican City, and this is on a map. That little green dot right here is the Vatican. That little green dot. I was so jealous because my buddy went to got to go see the Pope and Vatican City last year in Italy, and I was so jealous because I've always wanted to go. And my friend friend Aaron got to go see the Pope and to go see the Vatican City. So I was kind of jealous of that. So that's going to be one thing on my list, is to get a passport to go fly over there and go see it. So now with an area of only 121 acres and a population of about 882 people in 2024, it is the smallest sovereign state in the world, both by area and population itself. It is the only country in the world with a population of under 1,000 people. It is among the least populated capitals in the world, as governed by the Holy See. The Vatican City State is an ecclesiastical or a sacerdotal monarchical state ruled by the Pope itself. Now, the Pope is also the Bishop of Rome, and the Pope is also the head of the Catholic Church, and the highest state functionaries are all Catholic clergy of various different origins. Now, the Holy See dates back to early Christianity and is the principal episcopal see of the Catholic Church, which in 2018 had about 1.29 billion people that were baptized Catholics in the world, in the Latin Church, and 23 Eastern Catholic churches. Now, after the Avignon papacy, which was from 1309 to 1377, the popes have mainly resided in the apostolic palace within what is now Vatican City, although at times they reside in the Quirinial palace in Rome or elsewhere. Vatican City contains religious and cultural sites such as St. Peter's Basilica, the Sistine Chapel, which is the one that Michelangelo had painted, um, the Vatican Apostolic Library, and the Vatican Museums. Now, they feature some of the world's most famous paintings and sculptures. The economy of the Vatican City is supported financially by donations from believers who are Catholic. Now, and also by the sale of postage stamps and souvenirs and fees for admission to the museums and sales of publications. Vatican City has no taxes and any items are duty free. Now, the name Vatican City was first used in the Lateran Treaty that was signed on February 11th of 1929, which established a modern city-state named after Vatican's Hill. Now, the geographic location of the state is within the city of Rome itself. Vatican itself, that's good. Thanks for subscribing. Now, the name Vatican itself is derived from the name of an Etruscan settlement, Vatica or Vaticum, located in the general area that the Romans called Ager Vaticanus, which is also known as Vatican territory. The Italian language name of the city is Città del Vaticano, or more formally, Stato della Città del Vaticano, meaning State of Vatican City. Its Latin name is Status Civitatis Vaticanae. Now, this is often used in official documents by the Holy See, the Church, and the Pope himself. Now, the new Pope that Italy has is from Chicago. Good thing, but obviously, the thing about the Pope, though, is that they gotta know every freaking language that there is, and that's hard to learn when there's over 200 languages spoken in the world, and the Pope has to know all of them. I just don't see how I can remember every damn language that there is. Now, the history of the Vatican City was already in use at the time of the Roman Republic for the Ager Vaticanus, a marshy area on the west bank of the Tiber, across from the city of Rome, located between the Janiculum, the Vatican Hill, or Monte Mario, which was down to the Aventine Hill and up to the confluence of the Cremera Creek. The top of them, Ager Vaticanus, is attested until the first century onwards. Now, afterwards, another toponym appeared, Vaticanus, denoting an area much more restricted on the Vatican Hill, today's St. Peter's Square, and possibly today's Via della Conciliazione. Because of its vicinity to Rome's archenemy, the Etruscan city of another name for the Ager Vaticanus, was Ripa Bientina, or Ripa Etrusca, and for being subjected to the floods of the Tiber. Now, the Romans considered this originally uninhabited, an uninhabited part of Rome, dismissal and ominous. Now, the particularly low quality of the Vatican wine, even after the reclamation of the area, was commented on by the poet Martial from the year 40 to the year 102. Tacitus wrote that in the year 69, the year which is known as the year of the four emperors, when four different emperors had operated in Rome, and this was before popes came along at the time. When the northern army that brought Vitellius to power arrived in Rome, a large proportion camped in the unhealthy districts of the Vatican, which resulted in many people dying among the common soldiery and the Tiber being close by. The inability of the Gauls and Germans to bear the heat and the consequent greed with which they drank from the stream weakened their bodies, which were already an easy prey for disease. Now, during the Roman Empire, many villas were constructed here after Agrippina the Elder drained the area and laid out her gardens in the early first century AD. In the year AD 40, like the letters AD and then the year 40, her son, the Emperor Caligula, built in her gardens a circus for charioteers, It was later completed by the Emperor Nero, and obviously the most famous saying is that Rome wasn't built in a day, or that Nero or and Nero was a very big name out there, and usually it was called simply the Circus of Nero. Here you got a Vatican obelisk, which is this right here. This was brought to Rome from Egypt by Caligula, and this is in St. Peter's Square. And then over here, you got the Vatican City that's highlighted in red, and then you see the layout of Italy itself up there. So when it comes to the Vatican obelisk in St. Peter's Square is the last visible remnant from the Circus of Nero. It was brought from Heliopolis in Roman Egypt by the Emperor Caligula. The obelisk originally stood at the center of the spina median of the Roman circus. Now the circus became the site of the martyrdom for many Christians after the Great Fire of Rome in the year AD 64. Now tradition states that it was in this circus that St. Peter was crucified upside down, which is no, I'm not sure, and that's usually not a good thing when you're crucified upside down. In 1586, the obelisk was moved to its current position by Pope Sixtus V, using a method devised by the Italian architect Domenico Fontana. I didn't know if I said that name right, but obviously, I never heard of the Great Fire of Rome, so I guess that'll be something to look up too. Now, opposite the circus was a cemetery separated by the Via Cornelia. Now, funeral monuments, mausoleums, small tombs, and altars to pagan gods of all kinds of polytheistic religions were constructed before the construction of the Constantinian Basilica of St. Peter. In the first half of the 4th century, a shrine was dedicated to the Phrygian gods Cybele and her consort Attis. Remained active long after the ancient Basilica of St. Peter was built nearby. Now, remains of this ancient necropolis were discovered during renovations by popes throughout the years, increasing its frequency during the Renaissance era until it was systematically excavated from 1939 to 1941 on the order of Pope Pius XII. Now, the Constantinian Basilica was built in 326 over what was believed to be the tomb of St. Peter, who was buried in that cemetery. Now, from then on, the landmass became more populated in connection with activity at the Basilica. A palace was constructed nearby as early as the 5th century during the pontificate of Pope Symmachus, who reigned from 498 to 514. Now the popes gradually came to have a secular role as governors of regions near Rome, Italy, and they ruled at the time back in the 756 to 1870. They ruled the Papal States, which covered a large portion of the Italian peninsula, and for more than 1,000 years until the mid 19th century, when the territory belonging to the papacy was seized by the newly created Kingdom of Italy. Now, for most of this time, the popes did not live at the Vatican, but the Lateran Palace but they lived on the opposite side of Rome, was their habitual residence for about 1,000 years. From 1309 to 1377, they lived in Avignon in France. On their return to Rome, they chose to live at the Vatican, and they moved to the Quirinal Palace in 1583 after work on it was completed under Pope Paul V, who was Pope from 1605 to 1621. In 1870, after the capture of Rome, Italy, popes have lived in the Vatican, and their prior residence at the Quirinal Palace was taken over by the Kingdom of Italy. In 1870, the Pope's holdings were left in an uncertain situation when Rome was annexed by Italian forces, bringing to completion the Italian unification. After a normal resistance by the papal forces between 1861 and 1929, the status of the Pope of Rome was referred to as the Roman Question. And Italy made no attempt to interfere with the Holy See within the Vatican walls. However, it confiscated church property in many different places. Now, in 1871, the Cornerial Palace was confiscated by the Kingdom of Italy, and it became the Royal Palace. Therefore, the popes resided undisturbed within the Vatican walls, and certain papal prerogatives were recognized by the law of guarantees, which included the right to send and receive any ambassadors to the church. The popes did not recognize the Italian king's right to rule in Rome, and they refused to leave the Vatican compound until the dispute was resolved in 1929. Now, Pope Pius the Ninth, who ruled from 1846 to 1878, was the last ruler of the papal state, and he was referred to as a prisoner in the Vatican and forced to give up secular power. The popes focused on spiritual issues anyway. Now, this situation was resolved on February 11th of 1929, when the Lateran Treaty became the Holy See, and the Kingdom of Italy was signed by the Prime Minister and head of the government that was headed by Benito Mussolini on behalf of King Victor Emmanuel III and by Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Gasparri for Pope Pius the 11th. Now, this treaty, which was ratified and took effect on June 7th of 1929, established the independent state of Vatican City and reaffirmed the special status of the Catholic Christianity in Italy. Now, during World War II, the Holy See, which governed the Vatican City, had pursued a policy of neutrality during World War II under the leadership of Pope Pius XII. Now, German troops had occupied Rome after the September 1943 armistice of Cassel, with Allied forces pushing them out in 1944. Now, both sides respected the Vatican City status as neutral territory. Now, one of the main diplomatic priorities of Pius XII was to prevent the bombing of Rome. A high level of sensitivity led him to protest even the dropping of pamphlets over Rome by the Royal Air Force, claiming that the few which did land within the Vatican City violated its neutrality. Now, the British government's policy towards the Vatican, as expressed in the minutes of a cabinet meeting, was that we should on no account harass the Vatican City or molest it in any way, but molesting would not be a word I would say to describe what would happen in the Vatican, but that our action as regards the rest of Rome would depend on how far the Italian government observes the rules of war. Now, after the United States entered into the war, U.S. officials were against bombing the Vatican City, and they were fearful of offending Catholic members of the American military, but they did say that they could not stop the British from bombing Rome if the British decided to do so. Now, the U.S. military even exempted the Catholic service members from air raids on Rome and from other areas with a significant Catholic presence. Now, unless they voluntarily agreed to participate, notably with the exception of Rome and presumably the possibility of the Vatican, no Catholic U.S. service member ever refused a mission within German-held Italy. Now, on the other hand, the British insisted that they would bomb Rome whenever the needs of the war would demand it. In December of 1942, the British envoy to the Holy See suggested that Rome be declared an open city, a suggestion that the Holy See took more seriously than was probably meant to by the envoy, who did not want Rome to be an open city. Now, Mussolini had rejected this suggestion when the Holy See put it to him. In connection with the Allied invasion of Sicily, 500 United States Army Air Forces aircraft bombed Rome on July 19th of 1943, targeting Rome's railway hub in particular, which would hurt their economy a little bit. So approximately 1,500 people were killed, and Pius XII, who had been described in the previous month as worried sick about the possibility of Rome being bombed, toured the affected areas. Another Allied bombing raid took place on August 13th of 1943, after Mussolini had been ousted from his power. The following day, the new Italian government declared Rome an open city after consulting at the Holy See on the wording of the declaration. Now here's a picture of a view of St. Peter's. So this picture right here is St. Peter's Square from the top of Michelangelo's dome. Michelangelo was a very famous painter and sculptor that lived back in the 1500s or 1600s, somewhere around there. So Pius XII refrained from creating cardinals during the war. By the end of World War II, there were several prominent vacancies. Cardinal Secretary of State, the Camerlengo, the Chancellor, and Prefect for the Congregation for the Religions among them. Now, Pius XII created 32 cardinals in the year 1946, having announced his intention to do so in his preceding Christmas message. In 1970, the Pontifical Military Corps, except for the Swiss Guard, was disbanded by Paul the VI. The Gendarmerie Corps were transformed into a civilian police force and a security force in itself. In 1984, a new concordat between the Holy See and Italy had modified provisions for the earlier treaty, including the position of the Catholic Christianity as the Italian state religion, a position given to it by a statute of the Kingdom of Sardinia in the year 1848. Now, in 1995, construction of a new guest house, Domus Sanctae Marthae, adjacent to St. Peter's Basilica, was criticized by Italian environmental groups, and it was backed by Italian politicians, and they claimed the new building would block views of the basilica from nearby Italian apartments for the people who might want to see that. Now, for a short while, the plans strained the relations between the Vatican and the Italian government itself. The head of the Vatican's Department of Technical Services robustly have rejected challenges to the Vatican State's right to build within its borders. Now, the territory of Vatican City is part of the Vatican Hill and of the adjacent former Vatican Fields. It is within this territory that St. Peter's Basilica, the Apostolic Palace, and the Sistine Chapel, and museums were built along with other buildings. This area was part of the Roman Rayon Borgo until 1929. Now being separated from Rome, Italy, on the west bank of the river Tiber, this area was an outcrop of Rome that was protected by being included within the walls of Leo the Fourth, who ruled from 847 to 855, and later expanded by the current fortifications on walls built under Pope Paul III, who ruled from 1534 to 1549, and then Pope Pius the fourth who ruled from 1559 to 1565, and Pope Urban the eighth, who ruled from 1623 to 1644. So when you're anointed pope, there is no term limit on a pope. The pope can serve as long as they want. They can serve several years, or they can serve until the day they die. That's the thing about the popes. That's also the same thing with Supreme Court judges. It's a lifetime appointment where they serve until they die, or they serve until they decide to step down and are no longer capable and are eligible of doing the job. So when the Lateran Treaty of 1929 came about, this gave the state its form. It was being prepared. The boundaries of the proposed territory were influenced by the fact that much of it was all but enclosed by this loop, and for some tracts of the frontier, that there was no wall, but the line of certain buildings supplied parts of the boundary, and for a small part of the frontier, a modern wall was constructed. This territory includes St. Peter's Square, which is distinguished from the territory of Italy itself only by a white line along the limit of the square where it touches the Piazza Pio the 12th. Now, St. Peter's Square is reached through the Via Delia Concilia zone, which runs from close to the Tiber to St. Peter's. This grand approach was constructed by Benito Mussolini after the conclusion of the Lateran Treaty. St. Peter's Square is also partially encircled by the Ricciolo d'Italia, which is a small strip of Italian territory. Now, according to the Lateran Treaty, certain properties of the Holy See that are located in Italian territory, most notably the Papal Palace of Castel Gandolfo and the major basilicas, enjoy extraterritorial status similar to that of the foreign embassies. Now these properties are scattered all over Rome and Italy itself, and they house the central offices and institutions that are necessary to the character and the mission of the Holy See. Now, Castel Gandolfo and the name Basilos are patrolled internationally by police agents of the Vatican City State, and not by Italian police. Now, according to the Lateran Treaty, St. Peter's Square, up to but not including the steps leading to the Basilica, is normally patrolled by the Italian police. Now, there are no passport controls for visitors entering Vatican City from the surrounding Italian territory, but there is free public access to St. Peter's Square and the Basilica, and on the occasion of the papal general audiences, to the hall in which they are held in. Now, for these audiences and for major ceremonies in St. Peter's Basilica and the Square, tickets are free of charge, but they must be obtained beforehand if you're ever intending to go. The Vatican museums incorporating the Sistine Chapel usually charge an entrance fee, but there is no general public access to the gardens, but guided tours for small groups can be arranged to the gardens and excavations under the Basilica, but other Vatican locations are only open to individuals who have business to transact there. Now here is St. Peter's Square up close. This is St. Peter's Square, the Basilica and the obelisk from Piazza Pio the 12th. So the climate for the Vatican City is the same as Rome's, a temperate, moderate Mediterranean climate. It has mild, rainy winters from October to mid-May, and hot, dry summers from May to September. Some minor local features, principally, you'll see mist and dew, and they are caused by the anomalous bulk of St. Peter's Basilica, the elevation, the fountains, and the size of the large paved square. The highest temperature ever recorded was 105 degrees on June 28th of 2022. In July of 2007, the Vatican accepted a proposal by two firms based respectively in San Francisco and Budapest to become the first carbon-neutral state by offsetting its carbon dioxide emissions within the creation of a Vatican climate forest in Hungary. As a purely symbolic gesture to encourage Catholics to do more to safeguard the planet, nothing came of this project. But in November of 2008, the Vatican installed solar panels on the roof of Paul VI Audience Hall. Now, within the territory of now they got gardens in Italy, and if you saw some of the movies and gardens of Italy itself, they got some beautiful gardens. Now, within the territory of the Vatican City are the Vatican Gardens, which account for about half of the Vatican territory. The gardens, which are established during the Renaissance and the Baroque era, were decorated with fountains and sculptures. And there is actually a thing on here called Vatican Gardens I can click on, and you'll see how beautiful their gardens are once I click on it. But give me several minutes on that one after I finish this up, and I'll click on that when I get done with the video, and then you'll see, like, when I get done close to the video. So the gardens cover approximately 57 acres. The highest point is 60 meters, 197 feet above mean sea level, and stone walls bound the area in the north, south, and west. Now the gardens date back to medieval times, when orchards and vineyards extended to the north of the Papal Apostolic Palace. In 1279, Pope Nicholas III moved his residence back to the Vatican from the Lateran Palace and enclosed this area with walls, and he planted an orchard, a lawn, and a garden. Now here's a panorama of the gardens from St. Peter's Basilica. and you can see that. Zoom up here a little bit. Yep, there we go. That's part of the gardens. But you'll see a better look once I click on the gardens, on the Vatican Gardens in itself. Now, the politics of the Vatican City takes place in the context of an absolute elective monarchy and being governed by the Holy See itself, in which the head of the Catholic Church holds power of. Now, the Pope exercises principal legislative, executive, and judicial power over the state of the Vatican City, which is a rare case of a non-hereditary monarchy. Now, the Vatican City State, which was created in 1929 by the Lateran Pacts, provides the Holy See with temporal jurisdiction and independence within the small territory. It is distinct from the Holy See itself, and the state can thus be deemed a significant but not essential instrument of the Holy See itself. The Holy See itself has existed continuously as a judicial entity since Roman imperial times. It has been internationally recognized as a powerful and independent sovereign entity since the late antiquity period to the present, and without interruption, even at times when it was deprived of territory from the year 1870 to 1929. The Vatican City is one of the few widely recognized independent states that has not become a member of the United Nations. Now, the Holy See, which is distinct from Vatican City State, has permanent observer status with all the rights of a full member, except for a vote in the UN General Assembly. Now, this is the new Pope right here from Chicago, Pope Leo. He was born and raised in Chicago and raised in the Catholic Church. That's the only way that popes can have so many languages is being raised in the church itself. Now, the government of Vatican City has a unique structure. It's governed by the Holy See. The Pope is the sovereign of the state, but he is supported by many different bodies of the Vatican City. Now, legislative authority is managed in the Pope's name by the Pontifical Commission for the Vatican City State, a body of cardinals appointed by the Pope for 5-year periods. The cardinals only serve for 5 years at most, and never any longer. Now, the executive power is exercised by the president of that commission, who is consequently also the president of the governorate, assisted by the general secretary and the deputy general secretary. Now, the state's foreign relations are entrusted to the Holy See's Secretariat of State and Diplomatic Service. Now, nevertheless, the Pope has absolute power in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches over the Vatican City, and is thus the only absolute monarch in all of Europe. Now, operationally, there are departments that deal with health, security, telecommunications, and other matters for that country and other areas. Now, the Cardinal of Camerlengo presides over the apostolistic Camera, to which is entrusted the administration of the property and protection of the other papal temporal powers and rights of the Holy See during the period of the empty throne or the papal vacancy. Now those of the Vatican State remain under the control of the Pontifical Commission for the Vatican City State, acting with 3 other cardinals chosen by lot every 3 days, one from each order of cardinals: the cardinal bishop, the cardinal priest, and the cardinal deacon. He in a sense performs during that period the functions of the head of the state of the Vatican City. Now, all these decisions of these 4 cardinals must be approved by the College of Cardinals as a whole itself. The nobility that was closely associated with the Holy See at the time of the Papal States continued to be associated with the Papal Court after the loss of these territories, generally with merely nominal duties. You could also see the Papal Master of the Horse, the prefecture of the Pontifical household, the hereditary officers of the Roman Curia, and black nobility. They also formed the ceremonial noble guard. In the first decades of the existence of the Vatican City State, the executive functions were entrusted to some of them, including that of the delegate for the state of Vatican City, which now denominated the president of the Commission for Vatican City within the motu proprio, the Pontificalis Domus of March of 1968. Pope Paul VI abolished the honorary positions that had continued to exist until then, such as Quartermaster General and Master of the Horse. And I'm not sure what the fuck the Master of Horse is, and what that even entails. Now, the Vatican City is governed by the Holy See, and the Pope is ex officio. He's the head of the state, a function dependent on his primordial function as Bishop of the Diocese of Rome and head of the Catholic Church. Now, the term Holy See refers not to the Vatican State, but to the Pope's spiritual and pastoral governance, largely exercised through the Roman Curia. His official title with regards to Vatican City is Sovereign of the State of the Vatican City. Now, Pope Leo the 16th, born Robert Francis Provost in Chicago, was elected on May 8th of 2025. His principal subordinate a government official for Vatican City, as well as the country's de facto head of government, is the president of the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City State, who since 1952 exercises the functions previously belonging to the governor of Vatican City. Since 2001, the president of the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City State also has the title of president of the governance of the state of Vatican City. They also hold now the president of Italy is the president is the Italian sister Raffaella Petrini, who was appointed by Pope Francis on March 1st of 2025, and was reconfirmed by Pope Leo the 16th on May 9th of 2025. Now, legislative functions are administered by the Pope, but are also delegated to the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City State, that's led by the president of the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City States. Its members are cardinals appointed by the Pope for terms of up to 5 years. Acts of the Commission must be approved by the Pope himself through the Holy See's Secretariat of State, and must be published in a special appendix of the Acta Apostolicis. And most of the content of this appendix consists of routine executive decrees, such as an approval for a new set of postage stamps. Now, here's the palace of the government of the Vatican City State. Now, the executive authority is delegated to the president of the government of the Vatican City, who is also the president of the Pontifical Commission. Now, in addition, the government include 2 immediate collaborators of the president, the general secretary and the deputy general secretary, and members of the general secretariat. Each are appointed by the Pope for up to 5 years, but important actions of the government must be confirmed by the Pontifical Commission and by the Pope through the Secretariat of State. Now, both the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City State and the President of the Government of Vatican City can be assisted by the counselors of Vatican City State in drafting legislation and other important issues. The President of the Government can convoke the members of the Council of Directors together with external experts and people, and the government oversees the central Okay, yeah. So the president of the cabinet can convoke the members of the council of directors together with external experts and other people. The cabinet also oversees the central government functions through several departments and offices. The directors and officials of these offices are appointed by the Pope for also up to 5 years. And the government is organized into central offices, one for law and another for personal matters, and directorates with roles in the following matters. They have one for infrastructure and services, telecommunication and information services, security and civil protection systems, the economy, the health and hygiene, the museums and cultural heritage, and pontifical villas. Now there are subsidiary bodies for for monetary, disciplinary, personal selection matters. In the Pope's name, judiciary functions of the Vatican judiciary are exercised by four different bodies: a Supreme Court, a Court of Appeal, a tribunal, and a sole judge, whose roles are established by the Vatican codes of the criminal and civil procedure, on the jurisdiction of the judicial authorities of Vatican City, states, and criminal matters. At the Vatican's request, sentences imposed can be served in Italy. Due to obvious territorial constraints, many headquarters and offices of the Holy See are located on Italian territory, and they are granted the same immunity as diplomatic missions, thanks to the Turin Treaty, and are commonly defined as extraterritorial areas. As the Vatican City is as an enclave within Italy, its military defense is provided by the Italian armed forces, but there is no formal defense treaty with Italy itself, as Vatican City is considered a neutral state. The Vatican City has no armed forces of its own, although the Swiss Guard is a military corps of the Holy See and is responsible for the personal security of the Pope itself and residents in that state. Soldiers of the Swiss Guard are entitled to hold Vatican City state passports and nationality itself. Now, the Swiss mercenaries were historically recruited by popes as part of an army of the Papal States. The Pontifical Swiss Guard was founded by Pope Julius II on January 22nd of 1506 as the Pope's personal bodyguard, and continues to fulfill that function to this day. It is listed in the Annuario Pontifico under the Holy See, but not under the States of the Vatican City. In 2005, the Guard had 134 members in it. Recruitment is arranged by a special agreement between the Holy See and Switzerland itself. Now here is a guard of the Vatican City at a sentry box. So right here is the sentry box, and it's a guard, and these are guards who are watching over the Vatican. There's two of them here. You can see them both. Now, if you're going to be a Swiss Guard, all recruits must be Catholic, and they have to be unmarried males with Swiss citizenship, who have completed their basic training of being a guard with the Swiss Armed Forces and with certificates of good conduct. And they have to be between the ages of 19 and 30, and they have to be at least 5'9" or taller in height. The members are equipped with small arms and the traditional halberd, and trained in bodyguarding tactics. Together with the core of the Gendarmerie of Vatican City, the Swiss Guard has roles in the Italy Vatican border control. The Palatine Guard and the Noble Guard, the last armed force. Sorry about that. That was my roommate. One of my roommates, just checking in. He wants to know how the job search is going. Now, the entire territory of the Vatican City has been listed on the International Register of Cultural Property under special protection in 1984 among the World Heritage Sites. Consequently, the Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflict provides international legal protection against armed conflicts. Now, a large part of the historical documents of the very extensive Vatican Apostolic Archive is stored in something called the bunker, which was inaugurated in 1980. This facility is a two-story reinforced concrete vault under the Cortile della Pigna, equipped with systems for fire protection, climate, humidity control, and physical security. A Vatican car looks almost like those smart cars that you see out here, and that's what they look like. They're very tiny. For me, I would feel cramped. I do not like these cars at all, and to me, they should be bigger. So Civil defense is the civil defense is the responsibility of the Corps of Firefighters of the Vatican City States, the National Fire Brigade, which is also what it's known as. Dating its origins to the early 19th century, the Corps in its present form was established in 1941 itself, but it's responsible for firefighting, civil defense scenarios including flooding, natural disasters, and mass casualty incidents. The Corps is governmentally supervised through the Directorate for Security Services and Civil Defense, and which is also responsible for the Gendarmerie. Now, the Gendarmerie Corps is the Gendarmerie or the police force and security force of the Vatican City and the extraterritorial properties of the Holy See itself. Now, the Corps is responsible for security, public order, border control, traffic control, and criminal investigation, and other general police duties in the Vatican itself, including providing security for the Pope outside of the Vatican City. Now, the Corps has 130 personnel and is part of the Directorate for the Security Services and the Civil Defense, which also includes the Vatican Fire Brigade and an organ of the government of the Vatican City. Now, even though St. Peter's Square is part of the Vatican territory, it is normally safeguarded by the Italian police forces. But also to say, when you go to the Vatican City, just keep an eye on your wallet, because the crowds of tourists in St. Peter's Square are target for pickpocketers. So make sure when you go there, check your pockets at all times to make sure that you still have your wallet after leaving the city. So crime in Vatican City consists largely of purse snatching, pickpocketing, and shoplifting by outsiders. The tourist foot traffic in St. Peter's Square is one of the main locations for pickpocketing in the Vatican City. Now, if crimes are committed in the square, the perpetrators may be arrested and tried by the Italian authorities, since that area is normally patrolled by the Italian police itself. Now, here's a picture of St. Peter's Square, and it's also, like I said, a target for pickpocketers. Those are all the tourists right there. Now, under the Lateran Treaty, Italy will, at the request of the Holy See, punish any individuals for crimes committed within the Vatican, and they will itself proceed against the territory, against the person who committed that offense. Now, if that person takes refuge in Italian territory, persons accused of crimes recognized as such both in Italy and the Vatican, they are committed in Italian territory, will be handed over to the Italian authorities if they take refuge in the Vatican City or any of its buildings that enjoy immunity under that treaty. Now, the Vatican City has no prison system apart from a few detention cells for pre-trial detention. People convicted of committing crimes in the Vatican serve terms in Italian prisons, with costs covered by the Vatican itself. Now, the Vatican City State is a recognized national territory under international law. The Holy See conducts diplomatic relations on its behalf. In addition to the Holy See's own diplomacy entering into international agreements in its regard, the Vatican City thus has no diplomatic service of its own. But because of space limitations, the Vatican City is one of the few countries in the world that are unable to host any embassies. Foreign embassies to the Holy See are all located in the city of Rome, and only during the Second World War were the staff of some embassies accredited to the Holy See, given what hospitality was possible within the narrow confines of the Vatican City itself. And embassies such as that of the United Kingdom, Rome was held by the Axis powers in Germany when the Allies controlled Rome. Now, the Vatican City itself participates in some international organizations whose functions relate to the state as a geographical entity, and it's distinct from the non-territorial legal persona of the Holy See. These organizations are much less numerous than those in which the Holy See participates, either as a member or with observer status. They include the following eight, and each of which the Vatican City state holds membership. You have the European Conference of Postal and Telecommunications Administrations. You have the European Telecommunications State Satellite Organization. You have the International Grains Control, International Institute of the Administrative Sciences, International Telecommunication Union, the International Telecommunications Satellite Organization, Interpol, and Universal Postal Union. It also participates in the World Medical Association and the World Intellectual Property Organization. The Vatican City is not a member of the United Nations, but the Holy See was granted observer status to the United Nations General Assembly in 1968. The only other country in a similar position is the partially recognized state of Palestine. Since it is not a member of the UN, the Vatican City is not subjected to the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, but it engages with the UN specialized agencies through its observer status, including the Central Emergency Response Fund, to which it contributed $20,000 between 2006 and 2022. Now, the Vatican City state is not a member of the International Criminal Court either. In Europe, only Belarus is a non-party, non-signatory state. Ukraine and Monaco are signatory states, but they have not been ratified, and Russia withdrew from this front in 2016. Now, the Vatican City is not a member of the Council of Europe either, and nor is it a party to the European Convention on Human Rights either. But thus, it's also not subject to the European Court of Human Rights. So among European states, Belarus is not a member, while Russia has ceased to be part of it after being expelled from the Council of Europe following the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, the OECD's Common Reporting Standards, known as CRS, aiming at preventing tax evasion and money laundering, has also not been signed. The Vatican City state has been criticized for many years for money laundering practices in the past decades. The only other country in Europe that has not agreed to sign the CRS is Belarus. The Vatican City state is one of the few countries of the world that do not provide any publicly available financial data to the International Monetary Fund. Now, when it comes to the Vatican City economy, the economy budget includes the Vatican museums and post office, and it's supported financially by the sale of stamps, coins, medals, tourist mementos, fees for admission to museums, and by publication sales. Now, the incomes and living standards of lay workers are comparable to those of counterparts who work in the city of Rome. Now, other industries include printing, the production of mosaics, and the manufacture of staff uniforms. Now, here's a view of the Vatican City at night. If you're ever there at night, you can see the dark sky. Now, the Institute for Works of Religion, known as IOR, and it's also known as the Vatican Bank, is a financial agency situated in the Vatican that conducts worldwide financial activities. It has multilingual ATMs with instructions in Latin, and possibly the only ATM in the world with this feature itself. No other country has that feature. The Vatican City issues its own coins and stamps. It has used the euro as its currency since January of 1989, owing to a special agreement with the European Union. Now, the euro coins and notes were introduced on January 1st of 2002. The Vatican City does not issue euro banknotes, but issuance of euro-denominated coins is strictly limited by treaty. Now, more coins than usual are allowed in a year with the new papacy, and because of their rarity, the Vatican euro coins are highly sought by collectors for their value. Now, until the adoption of the euro, Vatican coinage and stamps were denominated in their own Vatican lira currency, which was on par with the Italian lira. Here are the Vatican coins. So on each coin, you got images of Pope Francis and Pope Benedict the 16th, and you can see those here. The middle one is Pope Benedict the 16th, who just took over, or Pope that might not be okay. So Vatican City State, which employs nearly 2,000 people and has a surplus of 6.7 million euros in 2007, it ran a deficit in 2008 of over 15 million euros. In 2012, the U.S. Department of State's International Narcotics Control Strategy report listed the Vatican City for the first time among the nations of concern for money laundering, placing it in the middle category, which includes countries such as Ireland, but not among the most vulnerable countries, which include the United States itself, Germany, Italy, and Russia. Now, in February of 2014, the Vatican announced it was establishing a secretariat for the economy to be responsible and to oversee all economic, financial, and administrative activities for the Holy See and the Vatican City State itself, which was headed by Cardinal George Pell. Now, this followed the charging of two senior clerics, including a Monsignor, with money laundering offenses. Now, Pope Francis appointed an auditor general authorized to carry out audits of any agency at any time, and engaged a U.S. financial service company to review the Vatican's 19,000 accounts that they have to ensure to ensure compliance with international money laundering practices. The pontiff appointed the administration of the patrimony of the Apostolic See as the Vatican's central bank, and with responsibilities similar to other central banks around the world. In 2022, the Vatican planned to release NFTs of its museum collection. Now, speaking of museums, you have a Vatican Museum's new wing here. This is inside one of the Vatican museums, and you see the hallway here. The Vatican City has a reasonably well-developed transport network, considering its size, consisting mostly of a piazza and walkways, and it's as a state that has 1,150 yards long and 930 yards wide. It has a small transportation system with no airports or highways around it. The only aviation facility in Vatican City is the Vatican City Helioport. The Vatican City is one of the few independent countries without an airport, and is served by the airports that serve only the city of Rome. Leonardo da Vinci, which is Leonardo da Vinci Fiumicino Airport, and to a lesser extent, the Ciampino Airport. Now, there is a standard gauge Vatican Railway and a Vatican City Railway Station, mainly used to transport freight. It is connected to Italy's network of Rome's Roma San Pietro Railway Station by an 852-meter long, which is 932 yards spur, and 300 meters, which is 330 yards, of which is within the Vatican territory itself. Now, Pope John the 23rd was the first pope to use the railway. Pope John Paul II had ever rarely used it. Now, the closest metro stations is out of Vienna, San Pietro, and the Musei Vaticani. The Vatican City does have payphones. The Vatican City is served by an independent by an independent modern telephone system named which is named the Vatican Telephone Service. And this is what their payphones look like because the United States took all theirs out. The United States because when they started coming out with when the United States started coming out with cell phones, payphones became less of a thing to use. But Italy and the Vatican, but a lot of the foreign countries still use them. And you can see this is a payphone right here in Italy. Um, Now, the Vatican controls its own internet top-level domain, which is registered as VA. Broadband service is widely provided within the Vatican City itself, but Vatican City also has a radio ITU prefix, HV, and this is sometimes used by amateur radio operators. In 2015, the Vatican News web portal, the El Observatorio Romano daily newspaper, the Vatican Radio, and the Vatican Media, formerly Vatican Television Center, were brought together under the Dicastery for Communication, which is now the single point of reference of the Holy See for communication itself. Now, other institutions managed by the Dicastery for Communication are the Vatican Printing Press, which was founded in the year 1587, and the Vatican Publishing House, founded in 1926, and the Vatican Film Archive. Now, the Vatican Radio, which was organized by Guglielmo Marconi, had broadcasts on shortwave, medium wave, and FM frequencies, and on the internet. Its main transmission antennae are located in Italian territory, and they exceed the Italian environmental protection levels of emission. And for this reason, the Vatican Radio has been sued. Photo, audio, and video services are provided throughout another entity called Vatican Media. Now, El Osservatore or Romano is the multilingual semi-official newspaper of the Holy See. It's published by a private corporation under the direction of Catholic laymen, but reports on official information. Now, the official text of the documents are in the Acta Apostol K. Cetus, the official Gazette of the Holy See, which has an appendix for documents in the Vatican City State. Now, a postal service was created on February 13th of 1929. On August 1st, the state started to release its own postal stamps under the authority of the numismatic office of the Vatican City State. Now, the city's postal service is sometimes said to be the best in the world and faster than any postal service in Rome. Now, the International Postal Country Code prefix is the letters SCB. I'm not going to get into healthcare on the Vatican City, but because it's a long thing. But that'll be something else to do for another video. Now, the Vatican has implemented several environmental initiatives that are aimed to reduce its ecological footprint. Now, since 2008, the Vatican has expanded its solar energy system, including the installation of photovoltaic panels at various locations, such as the roof of Paul VI Audience Hall. The city-state has introduced 35 electric vehicle charging stations to promote the use of electric vehicles and intends to gradually replace state-owned cars with electric vehicles. Now, well before the European Union's 2021 deadline, the Vatican City successfully banned single-use plastics in 2019, reducing plastic worldwide. For the waste anyway. Now, as well before, so the Vatican's waste management system has improved, achieving a recycling rate of 55% for municipal solid waste, with the goal of reaching the EU standard of 70 to 75%. Energy efficiency measures such as installing LED lighting in St. Peter's Basilica and transitioning to digital document management, and they all have been implemented to reduce energy consumption and paper use. Now, these efforts reflect the Vatican's commitment to the mission of Pope Francis's encyclical encyclical Laudato Si and the apostolic exhortation of the Laudate Deum. Now, with demographics as of 2024, Vatican City has a population of only 882 residents, regardless of the citizenship. There are 372 Vatican citizens residing elsewhere that's not within the Vatican itself, and consisting of diplomats of the Holy See to other countries and cardinals residing in the town of Rome itself. Now, the population is composed of clergy, other religious members, lay people serving the state, such as the Swiss Guard, and their family members in itself. Now, in 2013, there were 13 families of the employees of the Holy See living in Vatican City itself. In 2019, there were 20 children of the Swiss Guards living at the Vatican. Now, all citizens and residents and places of worship in the city are Catholic, and the city receives thousands of tourists and workers every day, coming from different areas. Now, the Vatican has no formally enacted official language, but unlike the Holy See, they speak Latin for the authoritarian version of its official documents. But the Vatican City uses only Italian in its legislation and official communications. Now, Italian is the everyday language that's used by most of those who work in the state. In the Swiss Guard, Swiss German is the language used for giving commands. Individual guards take their oath of loyalty in their own language, like German, French, Italian, or Roman. The official websites of the Holy See and of Vatican City are primarily in Italian, with versions of their pages in a large number of languages and 2 varying different texts. Unlike the citizenship of other states, which is based either on jus sanguinis, birth from a citizenship, or even outside the state's territory, or on jus soli, birth within the territory of the state, the citizenship of Vatican City is granted on jus officii, namely on the grounds of an appointment to work in a certain capacity in the service of the Holy See. This includes cardinals, cardinals residents either within Vatican City, elsewhere in the town of Rome, and diplomats of the Holy See, and any other person that's resident in Vatican City due to their occupation of what they do. It usually ceases upon the cessation of the appointment, and citizenship is extended to the spouse and children of a citizen, and it's provided that they are living together in that city. Some individuals are authorized to reside in the city, but do not qualify or choose not to, or they choose not to request citizenship. Anyone who loses Vatican citizenship and does not possess other citizenship automatically becomes an Italian citizen, as provided in the Lateran Treaty. Now, the Holy See is not with it not being a country, issues only diplomatic and service passports, whereas the Vatican City issues ordinary passports to all its citizens. And the statistical oddity, comparing other countries in per capita or per area metrics, Vatican City is often an outlier. These stem from the state's small size and ecclesiastical function. Now, for example, most of the roles which would confer citizenship are reserved for men. The gender ratio of Vatican City citizenship is several men per woman. Now, further oddities are petty crimes against tourists, resulting in a very high per capita crime rate if you ever go. And the city-state leading the world in per capita wine consumption due to its sacramental use. A jocular illustration of these anomalies is sometimes made by calculating a popes per kilometer statistic, which is greater than 2, because Vatican City is less than half a square mile, is less than half a square kilometer in area. Now here's a 360-degree view of the Vatican itself in all directions. This is a 360-degree view from the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, overlooking the Vatican St. Peter's Square Center and out into Rome, and it's showcasing Vatican City in all different directions. Now this is pretty cool. I'd love to see that stuff like this. Now, the Vatican City is home to some of the most famous artwork in the world. St. Peter's Basilica, designed by a succession of architects including Bramante, Michelangelo, Giacomo della Porta, Carlo Moderno, and Gian Lorenzo Bernini, renowned works of the Renaissance architecture. The Sistine Chapel is famous for its frescoes, which includes works by um, So the Sistine Chapel is famous for its frescoes, which include works by Perugino, Domenico Ghirlandaio, and Sandro Botticelli, as well as the ceiling and Last Judgment by Michelangelo. And that is a beautiful painting. Once I click on it, and you'll see it. The interiors of the Vatican were decorated by artists including Raphael and Fra Angelico. Um, let's go click on this. The ceiling and Last Judgment by Michelangelo. Like I said, it's a beautiful painting inside. Let's see this here. So this is the Last Judgment by Michelangelo. But there's another painting here that you'll see that he's done, like this. So okay. So that would be Let's go back to that for a minute. Okay. Yep. So you see that. So the Vatican Apostolic Library and the collections of the Vatican museums are of the highest historical, scientific, and cultural importance. And it was added by UNESCO to the list of World Heritage Sites in 1984. The Vatican is the only site to consist of an entire estate. It is the only UNESCO site registered as a center containing monuments in the International Register of Cultural Property under special protection according to the 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of any armed conflict. Now, following the footsteps of the Pontifical Academy of the New Lindsay, founded by Pope Pius the Ninth in 1847, Pope Pius the 11th founded the Pontifical Academy of Sciences in 1936, located in the Casina Pio the Fourth. It brings together scientists who made contributions to mathematical, physical, and natural sciences and medicine. It also focuses on epistemological issues and the history of science. Now, among the academians, there are the astrophysicist Martin John Rees, the mathematician Cedric Villani, the theoretical physicist Edward Witten, and the Nobel Prize in Chemistry laureates Jennifer Doudna, and Emmanuel Charpentier, and Ernest Ernest Rutherford, the genetist Luigi, the head transplant pioneer Robert J. White, the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine Alexander Fleming. Now, the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences is another Pontifical Academy of the Holy See, located in the Vatican City itself. The seat of the Pontifical Academy for Life, which deals with bioethics and ethics of technology, is at St. Callisto Complex, which is a Vatican extraterritorial property. The Vatican's observatory, whose origins date back to the 16th century, continues to contribute to astronomical research, especially through a partnership with the University of Arizona and the Infrared and the Optical Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope in Arizona. Now, and to astronomical education and popular science projects. As a member of the International Astronomical Union and the International Center for Relativistic Astrophysics, it deals with research on cosmological models, stellar classification, binary stars, and nebulae. It has contributed to physiological interdisciplinary studies at the Center for Theological and the Natural Sciences in Berkeley, California, and research on the history of astronomy, thanks to its extensive library, which includes a meteorites collection. Now, the first telescopes of the Vatican Observatory in the gardens of Vatican City and near St. Peter's Basilica were among those used to create the Carte du Ciel, but they progressively became useless for research purposes due to light pollution in the 1930s. Consequently, Pope Pius the 11th had moved the observatory to the Vatican extraterritorial palace of Castel Gandolfo. Now, when it comes to Vatican City, they do not participate, and they're not a member of the International Olympic Committee, and they do not really compete in the Olympic Games at all, although it has participated in some international sporting events, including the World Cycling Championships. That's when they do the biking. The championships of the small states of Europe and the Mediterranean Games. But Vatican City has its own athletic association called Atletica Vaticana. Now, football in Vatican City is organized by the Vatican Amateur Sports Association, which holds the national championship called the Vatican City Championship with 8 teams, including, for example, the Swiss Guards, FC Guardia, and the Police and Museum Guard teams. Now, football in Italy is not the football that we play that's played out here. Now, football overseas is considered as actually soccer out there. Now, football in Vatican City is organized by the Vatican Amateur Sports Association, which holds the national championship, where the Swiss Guards, FC Guardia, and Police and Museum Guard teams play against each other. The association organizes the Coppa Sergio Belci and the Vatican Super Coppa. It controls the Vatican City national football team, which is neither affiliated with FIFA or the UEFA. Here's that thing I was looking for, the gardens of Vatican City, so we could get a live look on this. Now, this is not going to be a long particular video, but let's look at this. Now, the gardens of the Vatican City, also informally known as the Vatican Gardens in Vatican City, are private urban gardens and parks which cover more than half of the country, located in the west of the territory and owned by the Pope himself. Now, there are some buildings, such as Vatican Radio and the Governor's Palace, within the gardens. Now, the gardens cover approximately 23 hectares or 57 acres, about half of the city. The highest point is 197 feet above mean sea level. Stone walls bound the area in the north, south, and the west. The gardens and parks were established during the Renaissance and Baroque era, and are decorated with fountains and sculptures. Now, Pope Francis would open the Vatican Garden to the public in 2014, but individuals and pre-formed groups considered to consist of 16 or more people may visit the gardens with the presence of a tour guide. The gardens are an enshrine Marian images venerated worldwide at the designation of the Pope, who is the owner of the garden. Now, pious tradition claimed that the foundation site of the Vatican Gardens was spread with sacred soil throughout brought by the Mount Calvary by Empress Helena of Constantinople, to symbolically unite the blood of Jesus Christ with that shed by thousands of early Christians who died in the persecution of Emperor Nero Caesar Augustus. The gardens would date back to medieval time, when orchards and vineyards extend to the north of the papal apostolic palace. In 1279, Pope Nicholas III had moved his residence back to the Vatican from the Lateran Palace, and enclosed this area with walls. He planted an orchard, a lawn, and a garden. Firstly, they appeared near the hills of Saint Egidio, where today the Palazzo del Belvedere and the courtyards of the Vatican museums are also located. The site would receive a major re-landscaping at the beginning of the 16th century during the pontificate of Pope Julius II. Now, Donato Bramante's original design was then split into 3 new courtyards: the Cortili del Belvedere, the Della Biblioteca, and the Della Pigna, or also known as the pine cone. And the Renaissance landscape design that style that we see today over there. Um, Also in Renaissance style, a great rectangular labyrinth formal in design, set in boxwood and framed with Italian stone pines and cedars of Lebanon. In place of Nicholas III's enclosure, Bramante built a great rectilinear defensive wall. Now, in 1921, a fire broke out inside the sanctuary of the Basilica of the Holy House, and it destroyed a statue of the Virgin Mary known as Our Lady of Loretto. Now, the statue was commissioned by Pope Pius the Ninth the 11th in 1922. It was carved from cedars of Lebanon from the Vatican Gardens, but the sculpture, designed by Enrico Quattrini and painted by Leopoldo Solani, is still one of the most venerated today in the Basilica of Loretto in the Marche region. Since the end of 2014, the Vatican Museums and the Directorate of Technical Services of the Government of the Vatican City State have been running the project of restoration and conservation of various stone artifacts in the gardens. The goal of the project has been to prevent the deterioration of the objects of the art historical interest. In October of 2017, the professionals involved in the restoration conducted a study to consider, from a scientific point of view, modern methods and eco-sustainable techniques and application to the conservation of the artifacts over time. After careful study, they opted for non-toxic and environmentally friendly products such as oregano and thyme, along with other plant protection products that are used individually or combined. Now, today's Vatican Gardens are spread over nearly 57 acres, and they contain a variety of medieval fortifications, including buildings and monuments from the 9th century to the present day. Set among vibrant flower beds and topiary, green lawns, and 7 acres of patch forest. Now, there are a variety of fountains cooling the gardens, sculptures, an artificial grotto devoted to Our Lady of Lourdes, and an olive tree donated by the government of Israel. Now, both the Vatican and Castel Gandolfo Gardens became open to the general public in 2014, but you can only get in there and see it if you're with a tour guide. So in 2019, Raphael Tornini, who was the head of the Garden and Environmental Service of the Vatican, announced the gardens have been transitioning to organic lawn management since 2017. Pope Pius XI designated Saint Therese of France as the official patroness of the gardens on May 17th, 1927. According to her, the title is Sacred Keeper of the Gardens. And within the same year, a small chapel dedicated to her was built within the gardens near the Leone walls. Now the following are venerated images of the blessed Virgin Mary, whom are expressly designated via pontifical decree to the enshrinement of the Vatican Gardens, and this is the stuff that you'll see in the Vatican Garden. You have Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception. You have Our Lady of Watch, Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady Fatima, the Madonna of Schoenstatt. I don't see that one. The Black Madonna of Sesta Shoah. Then you got the Virgin of Mercy, Our Lady of Divine Love, but you really don't see them. Okay, here, that is that's actually a church. Our Lady of Divine Love. That's this building right here. Like I said, and these are all in the gardens. These are so freaking beautiful. I'm telling you, this like stuff. You got the Lady of Sacred Heart of Tagia, Lady of Counsel, or the Lady of Good Counsel. And then you got the Virgin of Soyopa. Then you got Nuestra Senora de la Antigua, Lady of Charity. That's in Cuba. There is no picture on that one. Okay, so we'll skip that one over. Our Lady of Panafricia, Our Lady of Parasidia, the Virgin de Copacabana, Virgin of Presentation of El Quincy, the Lady of the Rosary of Chinquira, Lady of the Pillar, you got Lady of Sorrows of Sistine, and then here are some of the pictures inside the gardens itself. You have the part of the Vatican Gardens. You got this middle one, this Fountain of Eagle, the Armenian Cross Monument inside the Vatican Gardens itself, the Vatican Gardens Palace of the Government of the Vatican City State, the Italian Garden. And like I said, these pictures on the Vatican Garden is so freaking beautiful that I would love to go in there with the tour guide and just look at all this. That concludes our video today. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. Or Rusty the King too. I have two channels. You can check out RBW King and subscribe to this one, Rusty the King, for more videos like this. If you want, you guys can leave a comment and let me know what you guys think on my videos, whether I'm live streaming or after the video posts itself. But make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you want more videos like this, and let me know what you guys think. Also leave suggestions for videos that you want me to do, and I'll try to get to them as quickly as I can. But there is something else I was going to say, and I'll see you guys next week. I do not have an idea yet of what my next video will be next week. I'll just think up the spur of my head when it comes to it. But I'll see you guys next week, and thanks for tuning in.